I am such an awesome guy. I make so many videos.
Hello there, Price of Reason here with a series review. If there was ever a Guinness World Record for bad writing, I think that episode 6 of She-Hulk Attorney at Law would be a serious contender. Every episode of this show has been worse than the previous one, but episode 6 went far beyond cringe, as it was outright embarrassing. At the beginning of the episode, Jen gets an invitation to be a bridesmaid at her childhood friend's wedding, which is taking place out of town. As Jen's cheerleader paralegal friend helps her pack, Jen says that even though she and her friend have grown apart, she'll still go to the wedding. Jen then breaks the fourth wall and says that she realizes that it's an inconvenient time for a self-contained wedding episode, which is true, but her admitting it doesn't really make it any better. Next thing you know, she arrives at the wedding as She-Hulk, and everybody is in awe of her. Her friends tell her that she looks great and that her backside is amazing, but her stuck-up bride friend, who moving forward, I'll just go ahead and call Snooty, isn't happy. Snooty feels that by being She-Hulk, Jen is taking away attention from her big day, so Jen promises she'll just be Jen. Then Jen breaks the fourth wall and says that she's bummed because this was the one time she actually wanted to be She-Hulk and not Jen. I'm not sure why though. If this is your childhood friend, why would you need to look like Shrek at her wedding? Anyhow, the other bridesmaids tell Jen that her groomsman is going to be Jonathan, and he's absolutely amazing, so naturally, Jen can't wait to meet him. Meanwhile, Mallory Book and Jen's cheerleader paralegal friend are working on a case together in Jen's absence. A toxic male jerk wants the firm to represent him because he's been married several times, and instead of getting divorces, he always just fakes his death, leaving his former spouses thinking he was dead. But now all of his former spouses have found out that he's still alive, and they're all looking to sue him for a ton of money. Book and cheerleader paralegal friend tell him that they don't approve of his relationship tactics, so he gets upset and jumps out the window. Thankfully, he lands on a car and he feels just fine. Now they deduce that he's superhuman, can't die, and that's how he was able to fool all of his former spouses. Anyhow, Jen is at the wedding and Snooty rubs it in that Jen doesn't have a boyfriend, while her friends are talking about the Twilight movies. You know, I've always thought those movies are shit, but compared to this dumpster fire of a show, they're looking pretty darn good right now, even with Kristen Stewart's acting. Out of the blue, Titania shows up. It turns out that she's dating a nerdy friend of the groom who invited her to come to the wedding. Snooty is all buddy-buddy with Titania, but Jen tells her that the only reason Titania came to the wedding was to mess with her. Snooty doesn't believe Jen and tells her that she's insane.
Wait a minute.
Didn't Titania try to kill a bunch of people in episode 1? Why is nobody on this fucking show even mentioning that? I mean, at least one comment from one character would do. Anything, really.
Hey, relax, guy.
Frustrated, Jen goes to sit in a garden where she's approached by Supportive Simp. Supportive Simp thinks Jen is great, and just as he tells her that she's the best, Snooty interrupts and tells Jen that she needs to go clean dishes because a lot of the wedding staff has quit. She also wants Supportive Simp to come inside with her, but never actually explains why. I swear this show is beginning to look like an improv class or something, because at this point, I refuse to believe that human beings actually sat in a room and wrote this scene. Meanwhile, back in LA, all the former wives and former husband of Super Jerk are in a conference room as Book and cheerleader paralegal friend try to reach a financial settlement with them. I can't help but think that they only added a former husband to the mix in order to avoid being called anti-hetero male, but nevertheless, I still think their anti-male messaging is pretty clear. Anyway, it turns out that the Super Jerk left them all with debt, and he's also a deadbeat father. Given that most of the women are the same age, it's odd how he was able to be married to so many of them consecutively, especially since one of them says that they were married for 18 years. One of the wives then says that she found out about Super Jerk's scheme by logging onto a website for hateful man babies, and cheerleader paralegal friend writes the name of the website down just in case it comes in handy at a later point in the episode. But why would Super Jerk even appear on a website for hateful man babies?
Hey, don't worry about that. Take a load off. Don't think about it. Look over here.
Book then tells Super Jerk that he should be thankful he's not in jail, and that it's going to cost him a lot of money to settle with his former spouses. He then tries to touch her without her consent, so she immediately tells him to stop. Ever notice that every episode we see a toxic male either harassing her or touching her? This show is supposed to be a legal superhero comedy, but I'm not sure how this motif exactly fits into either of those. Not to mention that minutes later, Super Jerk tries to get up, and Book has no issue touching him and putting him in his place. Great double standard there. Next, the other bridesmaids tell Jen that she has to iron all the groomsmen's shirts because they wrinkled them while playing Mario Kart in a scene that appears to take a subtle dig at toxic male gamers. In addition, it turns out that Jen's groomsman isn't actually a dude called Jonathan, but rather a dog who she will have to walk down the aisle with. I have to say, I really feel bad for this tuxedo-wearing dog for having to participate in this show, and I can only hope that he fired his agent after completing this gig. Now, the moment MCU fans have all been waiting for, the highly anticipated return of Cousin Chad, who's the official DJ of this amazing wedding. Jen is frustrated and wants to drink, but the drinks cost money, so she keeps shelling out more dough as she gets loaded and starts dancing. Meanwhile, after some initial bickering, cheerleader paralegal friend manages to convince all of Super Jerk's bitter wives and husband to accept their settlements, and Book is pleased with her work. Now that Jen's drunk, she calls Bruce Banner, who isn't answering the phone, which is weird because why would she try and call her cousin while drunk at a wedding? I mean, this isn't Game of Thrones here. Supportive Simp shows up and tells Jen that she's the best, but since she's drunk, she has to run out and throw up. Titania uses this opportunity to punch her in the face. She then tells Jen that she has to prove to the world that she could beat Jen up in She-Hulk form. Jen then turns into She-Hulk and beats Titania up so bad that her fake teeth get knocked out of place, and all the guests start filming the fight for social media. Feeling humiliated, Titania gets upset and leaves. Jen then feels bad because she promised Snooty that she wouldn't appear as She-Hulk at her wedding, but now that Snooty is drunk too, she loves seeing She-Hulk there. DJ Cousin Chad then drops some dope beats, and everybody continues to have a good time. Book and cheerleader paralegal friend are celebrating their settlement with drinks at the office. Book says she's married and has a son, but then changes the subject. They both then register a fake account on the top-secret toxic man-baby forum that cheerleader paralegal friend wrote down the name of earlier in the episode, only to discover that it's a forum full of toxic men that all want to see She-Hulk dead. Book tells cheerleader paralegal friend that it's best if they don't tell Jen that such a forum exists because it would really bring her down. I thought it was interesting that in order to open a fake account for the toxic man-baby forum, they had to list USA as one of their interests, implying that if you're a hetero male and you like the USA, that means you're toxic. Very subtle messaging indeed. Cheerleader paralegal friend promises to keep the forum a secret, but while driving home, she leaves Jen a message telling her about the secret toxic man-baby forum where everybody wants her dead. Jen then shares a serving of fries with Supportive Simp, much like she did with Dr. Beta Male, but Supportive Simp seems to like Jen for who she really is, and she really has a thing for guys who share fries. Finally, some mysterious figure in a lab is messaging somebody else through the Toxic Man-Baby forum while looking at a camera feed showing Jen eating fries with Supportive Simp. The mysterious figure then prepares a very serious syringe and packs it in a case for radioactive materials. That's where this shit show of an episode ends. I could talk for hours about why nothing here works, but if I had to sum it up briefly, I would say that beyond the lack of humor or even a coherent story, none of the characters' motivations make any sense. Why would Jen be asked to be a bridesmaid at the wedding of a woman she hasn't spoken to in years, and why would she even go? If the writers insisted on this storyline, they could have perhaps created a past incident that led to a rift between them, so that we'd understand why there would be animosity or tension. Perhaps they both liked the same guy and now her friend was marrying him. Maybe the friend wanted Jen to be there so that she could rub it in. Also, Jen keeps saying how she doesn't like being She-Hulk, so why would she be She-Hulk at this wedding? And why can't they create any kind of logical story for Titania? She just keeps showing up randomly to annoy Jen, but there's never any real explanation offered to us as to why it's happening, how she's even roaming free, or why she wants to fight She-Hulk at all. As for the Super Jerk storyline, how could he pretend to be dead each time and nobody ever found out? In our day and age, it's highly unlikely that all of his former spouses wouldn't discover his scheme earlier. Much like Jen, I suspect that all the activists that wrote this episode were also drunk during the process. Honestly though, there's really not much to analyze or to dissect here. This is one of the worst episodes of one of the worst TV shows I've ever seen, and I'm not just saying that to sound sensational. It's really that bad. The people that wrote this are not professional writers. This is the bottom of the barrel for both this show and the entire MCU. There is nothing redeeming in this episode, aside from maybe that dog, who absolutely did the best with the material he was given, and he truly was the only relatable character. What did you think of She-Hulk Episode 6? Feel free to let me know in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to my channel and also clicking on that wonderful notification bell. Thanks for watching, my friends. Thank you, and good day.
I am such an awesome guy. I make so many videos. From